what are we going to do? We're going to find the correct drill. To drill out these holes just a hair larger than this. And it turns out I'm probably going to use a quarter. Quarter drill bit looks like it's going to be exactly correct for what we're trying to do here. So remember, we do not want this to be bigger than it has to be, just barely big enough for the screws, because we want no slop in this when we get done. So I'm going to put it in again, and I'm going to note that it's the outside 4 holes that we're going to hit. And so I don't think it has to be terrible. Perfect. That seems awful good. Let me double check this. Well, that seems correct. Yeah, this is in fact what I want to do. I'm going to get a piece of wood. Getting this wood because I really don't want to drill through my tabletop. That would kind of suck. So there's one. There's 2. It's getting a little bit hot. There's 3. There's 4. So now we've drilled out our 4 holes that we're going to need for this. I'm going to use that block. And again, let's just double check what we're trying to do here. This is going to be inside the door of the Chevy. Oh, I may have shown you this backwards. I want you to look again. These bolt holes, these blind holes, okay, they're coming from the interior of the door. So this is sitting on the driver's side like this. Just like this, with the moving part hanging towards the rear of the truck. These bolts will be exposed, and we want the motor to end up down. So I put this on backwards, so I need to turn it around before we bolt it down. It wants to sit just like that for the driver's side. For the passenger side, it will be exactly the opposite configuration, but for the driver's, that's it. Now notice we've got some nice meat there that the teeth are engaging, and that's what we're going to shoot for. Now do you see where we popped these rivets out earlier? We popped the 3 rivets out. We're going to use 2 of those holes as guide holes for drilling into this plate, whatever we want to call this plate. Haven't given it the spacer or whatever it is. And so basically the way I'm oriented in it is I want, before we make a mistake here, let's get this thing bolted down so we don't have a problem. Okay, and I dry fit these before, but it turns out that you want the nut on the top because the head of the screw is going to be just about the right fit against the surface of this motor. And I brought over several sockets. Let's see what this screws happen to be. They are clearly metric. $10mm, of course. Why is it everything I touch in metric is either 10 or 13? I have no idea. Okay, so you may have to hold this screw while we're tightening this down. It is a Phillips or a regular. I'm just going to stick a Phillips on there, and I'm going to tighten it down. I'm going to go to the opposite side and do the second one. Apologize for this video. It's probably not the correct angle for people to see exactly what I'm doing here. I'm going to get a little closer to my work here. And so once again, I'm going to put this on here, just hold that and tighten that down. And We don't want this thing wandering around inside the truck when we get done, so get it tight. Trucks have a lot of vibration in them. You can't tolerate that. And these screws, like I pointed out, these are probably not the best screws, but Dorman ships them with these motors. So I presume they're good enough to hold it in the square body, they're good enough to hold it in the 65. But it wouldn't hurt my feelings a bit if you went and bought new ones from Ace. My guess is if you rank down on these too hard, they'll strip right out. So use a little discretion, but make sure they're tight, make sure they don't vibrate loose in your door. Let's see if we can get this last screw to engage. And you may have to squeeze it together because, again, it does stand proud on this motor, but I assure you I've done this and it does fit. There we go. Okay, 4 down. Now again, this is going to sit just like so. Okay? And we want a good engagement, so before we drill this, we're going to find the right drill for this. We're not going to slop this drill, because we want to drill just big enough for these screws, and it turns out these rivet holes are ideal for these screws, these smaller screws that are in the bag. Remember that your bag is going to come with 8 screws, 4 big ones that we're going to use in the motor, and 4 small ones that we're going to use to bolt this thing down. Now notice, I want you to take a look at something here. The sector travels right here, so we can't put any screws over here. All the screws have to be on the exterior of this thing. And remember, we want this to capture the sector. This round part right here, I'm going to show it to you up close. The sector travels here, so there's only one way this fits. It's like this. When I put it in the door, it's going to be hanging down, which is what we want. Okay, so we're going to find the right drill for this. And it looks like the drill for this one, let's take a look here so I can tell you what I'm using. Well, it looks like 5/32 is the correct drill for this, but I'm going to double check. Yep, that's perfect. 5/32 is absolutely correct for these screws. Okay? And so, as you're drilling this down, I want you to look down here. We could drill, if we don't get this square, this travel guide will hit against your sector, and that would be bad. You want to get equal spacing before you drill anything down. And we want it to be tight. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, and I can see that there's equal distance on both sides of that thing. And it's deep into the cut. That means that the teeth are fully engaged. I think as soon as I get one screw into this thing, we're going to double check and make sure that it's the right spot. Okay, we don't want to drill through a motor, so come up early, just tap that surface. Now, the other thing I want you to be aware of is that this side of the window regulator is up against our door, so there's no extra space here. So put the screws in with the screw head at the top and let the threads dangle down in this gap down here. There's plenty of room to do that. Take advantage of it. Notice that these lock washers on these screws are stuck on the screws, and so they're going to sit on the top surface, and that's perfectly fine for me. So what I'm going to do is run this screw down. And then I'm going to take something, this is probably the correct tool, something like this, to hold that nut. Because this is kind of a blind, I really don't want to take it apart if I don't have to. Phillips. Eyeball this a little bit, so it'll be out of your view for a second. Okay, we've got it started. I just want to make sure we didn't cross through the nut, so hold it up, took a look at it. Now we're going to tighten it down. Okay, before I get that one tight, we're going to get the other screw in. Now notice that those screws are such that they line up, and when they're lined up, that gear is nice and tight to that sector. There's no slop in this. I'll drop in number 2. I may have tightened that screw a little tight. We may have to back that out, make this all go together. Nope, went right in. And so we're going to take our vice grips again, wherever they went. Oh, they're still attached. Look at that. I wonder I couldn't find them. Okay. So we've captured our nut, and we're going to stick it in there. Again, you could take this apart if you don't have anything like this. I just hate going backwards on this stuff. But this one is such I may have to, and then I have a choice. Let's see if I can approach it from here. That might work right there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to take this thing apart. There's no other way to do this, unfortunately. But now that I have the screw drilled and these down, I don't have to worry about the thing not being correct. Everything should line up nice and tight. Those 2 screws are going to hold it in there exactly where it needs to be, and then I can drill 2 more. Motor out, and notice that we've got a nice screw hanging out of the hole. We're going to drop a nut on it. And I'll show you from this angle. There we go. Got it started. Grab it with these vice grips again, so I don't have to mess with Okay, 2 screws in there. I'm going to tighten the second one down a little bit more. Now I can show you what's going on here. So notice that we've got a nice gap on both sides of this, and this travels through here very nice and free. And notice that the guide is up in place. And then I always have to do this. Put it on the passenger side where it belongs, and plug in the motor so that it hangs down. Pop it in this little slot. Like so. It's a nice tight fit. And drop your screws back in. Now, before I tighten this down, I'm going to go ahead and drill my other 2 screws. And again, I'm going to put them on this side because we can't be over here. The sector travels here. So I'm going to put one more in 2 different locations here. Where they are, I don't think is terribly important. other than the fact I'm going to space them out a little bit so that we get a little bit more leverage on here, more mechanical advantage on this as it rolls up. I think that we can put it clear on the outside edge and still be in this hump of the spacer.